So, hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation With. My name is John Lunn, aka Jonnychipz, and in this video series, we talk all things cloud with experts and advocates from right across our industry, covering a wide variety of topic areas from skills and careers through to technical overviews and softer skills. So, whether you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or LinkedIn, thanks so much for tuning in. It really is appreciated. Please do take part in the chat below. Drop us a comment, a like, and a subscribe would be absolutely awesome. Okay, so in this week's episode, I'm joined not by one, but by two awesome community members and Azure professionals. So it's been a long time coming, finally saying hello to these two guys who have been following across the socials for the last couple of years, and I'm looking forward to a fun Azure-related chat. So, based out of Belgium in the heart of Europe, I'm super excited to welcome my next guests on In Conversation With Wim Matthyssen and Karel De Winter. Well, hello both. How you all doing? Thanks for joining me.
Good. Hi, John. Always like your setup. Really nice setup you have. Really, I always wanted to say it, but yeah.
And that's what lockdown madness does to you guys. That's being locked in four walls for too long and having too much access to a credit card, I think, is probably the best way to put it. But like I said in the intro, guys, I mean, both we've been in chats, we've been kind of joining each other's user groups over the last few years. It seems like a lifetime ago, but we got a few good topic areas to chat around. This is only the second episode that I've ever done with two guests, so this is going to be an interesting format to see how we work through this. But it's really thanks for giving up your time first and foremost for joining me today. Really excited to chat to you both around what you've got going on and what you've been up to and things that are happening across the community. But before we get into all the good stuff, I don't know if you want to give yourselves a bit more of a broad introduction. Let us know a little bit about your potted career histories. I mean, Wim, should we start with you?
Yeah. So, like John said, I'm Wim Matthyssen. Probably a lot of people will already know me. So, just as Karel, I'm also based in Belgium, where I work as an Azure technical advisor, specific name, at a company called Proximus. I'm also a board member, like probably also a lot of people will know, of a Belgium user group called MC2MC. So it stands for Microsoft Cloud and Client Management Community. It's a whole word, but mostly people will know me from the short one, the MC2MC. So, and I think I started in IT in my early 20s. So I started as a technical support engineer. So working on all those peripherals, just computers, placing them, installing, even I think I started off with Windows 2000. I had my home PC running Windows 95, 98, and then when I started my professional career, I just starting with the normal desktops, doing the network stuff, even pulling the cables in the data center room and all those things. And I started doing at I think it's called in English evening school or night school. Yeah, I started studying PC and network management. Mm-hmm. So I got my degree in that while I was working. And then from there on, from a technical engineer, when I had my degree, I started as a system engineer. So then I started off working with all those Windows servers. I think the first one I used was even Windows Server 2003, if some people still know it. So that's the early one. And then evolved to Windows Server 2008. And then I started as a consultant working for a specific company. And I started at, I think it was ArcelorMittal. It's a big company. It's a worldwide company. And even then, I think it was in around 2008, I started using Hyper-V. All the rest in the world was using VMware, I think.
That's the way.
They wanted to focus on Hyper-V. So I started off, got me a book with Windows Virtual Server, it was called, before Hyper-V even I started with that one. And then evolved with Hyper-V, and I think I did around 5 years Hyper-V, going from to 2008 version, to the R2, 2012, 2012 R2, until even the 2016. And then hosting an environment of around, I think it was a 3 Hyper-V cluster of 4 nodes and around 300 VMs running on it. So it started from zero and I built it up until there. And I did all the migrations and all those things. And then made the switch from Hyper-V. I started working for another company with Azure. Even it was 2014, so in the early days, I think. And then, learning up from there until even now I'm an Azure MVP. So, but I was always working in the Microsoft, always working Hyper-V, purely Windows Server, and then just made a normal evolution into using Azure, I think.
You used the word a normal evolution into Azure there.
For me, it's a normal evolution.
But no, I get what you mean. I mean, that's a great kind of, you've come from that infrastructure roots, worked your way through. And I guess to a lot of people, that's, especially younger people into the industry, they may not have had those kinds of experiences. And maybe we'll touch on that as we, like you say, that normal evolution into the cloud. But I mean, there's a lot of training and a lot of learning that you've had to do there. And look, I mean, move over to you, Karel, so you can do your introduction. But that's where you're working at the moment, isn't it? Is in that training space. So look, give yourself a little bit of an intro, Karel. Let us know what you're up to.
Yeah, so my name is Karel De Winter, and first of all, thanks, John, for having us. We've indeed been really looking a long time for being on your show, but now definitely it's happening. So my background also, like Wim explained, I'm an infra guy, so I've also the same experience. I've used to being in data centers, plugging in all those cables, and even sometimes I must commit, I turned off the light to see all the LEDs blinking. So those were good times, right? And I think John, you're also in the infra world, so you know the feeling of plugging in cables, switching servers, but also storage devices. It's been a good time, and then we've also seen the transition from a physical world to a hypervisor world, and that's where I was more on the VMware side because you had more capabilities, you had more features in that time, and Hyper-V quickly catched up with VMware. But then, I worked at a company that was VMware certified, so we had to use that product, of course. So I've been in the infra world a long time, doing consultancy. And then I think it was 2012, I've been to the Tech9 user group, and there was some person who is working at Microsoft right now also, who was talking about Azure storage. So that was, I think, one of the first services available at Azure. The first one was SQL, I think, the SQL Pass service, and then there was the storage. So I was intrigued by the thing that you could put something into the cloud and then do some things with it. And from that moment on, I've been looking at Azure all the time, and I'm playing around, seeing how it evolved from then till now. And then I met Wim, also one person from within the community, and I just need to thank Wim. I don't think I ever thanked you for dragging me into that community stuff. And then I became MVP only 1 year until now. I recently joined Microsoft as a Microsoft technical trainer. So my main job now is sharing my knowledge and teaching other persons through the worldwide learning team. So it's really nice to be in the core organization of Microsoft and to contribute in the learning of other people, other companies. So that's where I'm right now.
And it's cool. And I think those kind of complement each other, kind of coming from that infrastructure route into a cloud platform. It's no thing about it. There is so much that you can possibly learn with a cloud platform. And I mean, look, even if we focus on an infrastructure kind of basis and we look to customers, because we all work with customers, we're all, I guess, in the similar kind of roles where we're helping customers take those kind of first footsteps towards the cloud. I mean, what are your thoughts in that? I mean, how do you engage customers? How do we engage? And what are the first kind of things that we talk to customers about in today's world with taking that first step towards a cloud platform for their infrastructure and apps? I mean, Wim, do you want to start that off maybe?
I think in Belgium, it's a smaller company. Still, a lot of companies are using, like Karel was mentioning, they're running their VMs on VMware or they're running on Hyper-V. So the easiest way in Belgium, probably a lot of people will not want to hear it, but is to do some kind of lift of shift scenario. Because first of all, Belgium, a lot of companies are searching for expert people working with the cloud. They have a small bubble to search in, so the skill set in a lot of companies is still missing. So the easiest way to do it, even especially at the smaller companies in Belgium, is to do a lift and shift, because they're already familiar with VMs. And in a way, if you run your resources in the IaaS, it's kind of it's something familiar. They use stuff, they can work with it, and it's easy to explain them. It's not always the cheapest. It's not in a way cheaper than when you run it on-prem, but in a way you can start using the cloud to do some box testing. You do an assessment, and vice versa, and then they're starting off, and then if they get more experienced people, you move over to the PaaS, and it's in a way in Belgium it's mostly in a transition. You have companies, the bigger ones, who most of the time have those skilled people in house. They're looking a little bit faster. I think Karel can say it, to Kubernetes and all those things, and then directly into PaaS, and they go to Azure SQL, Azure Cosmos DB, and they're migrating in a cloud way. But for the smaller companies, I think it's still easier to start off with IaaS and then move on from there. Not stay on IaaS. It's a first step. It's a starting point, but trying to get familiar with the possibilities. Because, like you said, John, there are a lot of things in Azure you can cover. If you need to do it and you need to learn it, I think we're learning 24/7 for a whole year, and we're still not capable of running everything. I think.
But I guess it's the journey. That's the journey that we're talking about, isn't it? If you're a small business, start small, get that initial. It's not just about lifting and shifting infrastructure into Azure.
It depends on the skill set, and in my opinion, it really depends on the customer. So one customer is not the same as another customer. I have a mix of customers. I have smaller customers. I have really enterprise grade. They use enterprise grade. They use all those fancy stuff in Azure, like the AI. They're focusing on Edge. They're using Azure Stack ACI with Arc and combining all those things. But it's not for every company in Belgium. But it's a fun way to do it, because I do IaaS, but I also do PaaS. I also do Arc, all those hybrid things. So it's a mix for me. It's quite fun, to be honest.
But I guess one of the things that's come up a lot in conversation is around this concept of, right, we've got cloud. We just want to throw things into the cloud platform and go from there. And look, in my experience, that's a bit of a double-edged sword. Of course, yes, you can get up and running quite quickly, but then maybe you've not got control on some of the important elements like cost. You don't want to go and throw things in and leave them running. I mean, Karel, what are your views on what Microsoft have done and where they're going with kind of helping people understand that control, I guess, and move forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, you have, of course, the cloud adoption framework. I think you've talked about it in previous shows, but that's a moving part. So first of all, you can have the documentation there and see how you can theoretically go with a sort of plan. You need to have a plan, like even if you're a small business or enterprise, you need to have a cloud plan. So what are your intentions to move to the cloud? Is it cost optimization? Do you need to take away all the administration tasks of it? So that's the main part of why you should move to the cloud. And what I've seen in the past is, like you say, even big enterprises just start using services in Azure, and I must commit, even really, really big enterprises only do have one production VNet, and they come to the limitation of, all right, we don't have IPs anymore. They have one or two subscriptions, which limits them in the quotas of using, for example, storage accounts, using other services. They just hit the limits of Azure, and that's because they just do it. They just start using it without a plan. And one thing that Microsoft is having is that enterprise scale initiative that you can use, and the plan there that will help you as a customer to onboard your services, to onboard your applications to an Azure environment. And it goes even one step further. I think, John, you also mentioned it, I think 1 or 2 years ago even, that there is an automatic part. You can have the ARM templates within the enterprise scale that you can deploy resources to, and it's just all in there. You just have to fill in some parameters if you deploy the ARM templates, where you want a firewall or not. Do you use Azure Firewall or do you use your own NVA, for example? You can just put in the parameters and it will deploy for you. Even storage accounts, do it need to be HTTPS enabled or not? All those things will be automatically in place, and it will help you also with the total governance of your project, because that's something we see in the past, and I think, Wim, you can confirm that also. It can go wrong, it just dropping things in Azure, deploying things in Azure. It's not the best practice. You need to think before you deploy something. You need to have your governance in place as a first step, and then go from there on. Make sure that you don't have public IPs on your VMs, and so on and so on. So enterprise scale is really a good thing to look at.
And that's a great point out there, Karel. Is Microsoft have got a lot of guidance in that cloud adoption framework to kind of help navigate through those kind of things. And I've seen it too many times where, like you say, companies have, with best intentions at heart, you've got those techie people working, especially smaller companies. I think you probably see it more of, is that they just want to get into it, get moving, and like you say, they tend to hit some of these limitations. So it's a great idea to maybe give it a little bit of thought. You don't have to implement everything, like you said, Wim. It's that journey, isn't it? And learning some of those things as you go. So, I mean, in terms of, some great tips, and I'll probably get some links to the CAF documentation as well in the notes that accompany this video now. But look, in terms of moving to the cloud, you kind of hinted towards it there around ARM templates, and I guess this kind of hinges on that learning experience again. But we hear a lot of things about infrastructure as code. I mean, where are you guys on that journey at the moment? We hear about ARM templates. We've heard about Bicep and what's going on there, and Terraform and Cloudflare. And there's so many Cloudflare. What's the AWS one now? Slips my mind all the time. The cloud. You can tell where my heart is, can't you? But so what are your guys' take on that? I mean, Wim, we'll start with you. Infrastructure as code as a movement forward from us operations people moving into businesses versus that whole dev experience. I mean, what's your take on that at the moment?
It's in a way, again, a normal evolution, I think, because in the beginning we all started learning things with just doing some clicks in the Azure portal. Everybody did it. It's a good way if there's a new.
I still do it.
I also still do it if there's something new. First, see what it does, see how it comes out when you deploy it, just by click, and then, in a way, it's you start automating it, and the important thing is, and I work for a big company, and the discussion is, some people are quite familiar with Terraform, other people, no, I don't want to use Terraform because we're only focused on Microsoft. I want to do it with ARM, and then these days Bicep, but doing a translation from ARM to Bicep, it's once again also a journey. You need to learn the skill set. That's quite important. And in my opinion, it really depends on the task. If you start deploying, like Karel said, you start with your enterprise scale landing zone. You start defining your different landing zones. You start automating it. You start with Azure automation, all those things. In a way, that's the things I mostly write in infrastructure as code, of people in my team write it, and then that everything is deployed at different companies and different customers in a singular way. So if we deploy it at customer A and we deploy it at customer B, it almost looks familiar. Some naming, for example, the customer short naming in the naming or the tags are different, but the concept in the base foundation is exactly the same, so that operational people who need to do operational tasks for them it doesn't matter if it's company A they need to troubleshoot an issue, or it's company B they need to troubleshoot an issue. It's all set up in the same way. And at the moment, at my company, we're morally focusing on Terraform, but even I write still. I started off with PowerShell because I did Hyper-V. So from PowerShell, you start using Azure PowerShell, so I'm quite capable in Azure PowerShell. I've written everything. Also, my deployments were in the beginning all Azure PowerShell, so script 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Yeah.
And then I'm now evolving to translating everything into ARM and Bicep. And then even from time to time, I use Azure CLI because not all capabilities are in Azure PowerShell or for example, when you're using Terraform, I think a lot of people will see it. Some things come in later there. So
Sure. Yeah.
there is something new in, maybe you can deploy it in Terraform a month after it because it's not available yet or nobody has written that specific thing you need to use it. And for me, it's a combination, but it's the way to go. If you need to start learning like Bicep, Terraform, ARM, pick something you're familiar with and try to stick to it. I'm using a lot of things, but try to have good hands-on one specific infrastructure as code language, I would say.
Yeah, it's just about automated. Go on, sorry, Karel. You can.
No, I can elaborate on that. It's true what Wim said, and what I've seen is it happens in more small companies is that the IT person that is doing the on-premises data center also does Azure. So that means that the people that can leverage infrastructure as code, which they should do, don't have the time to do it because they have other duties to do. And it's morely in the bigger companies that we see that you have an automation team, right? You have the DevOps team that is capable of having some time to learn how ARM templates are working or learning a new language like Bicep. But nonetheless, it's very important to use infrastructure as code and don't see that you have to put everything into one template. No, that's not the best practice. You need to think about having templates or having Bicep as your modules. You have one module, one thing that deploys VM. You have one module, in fact, in Bicep that, for example, deploys a storage account, deploys a virtual network. And then everybody can start using those modules. And that's the power of having infrastructure as code, right? Don't make one big script and put everything in there because it's going to break, even if you are using Bicep. Bicep is new and Bicep is very good. I use it for creating demos also. But if you are going to have a very big environment and you put everything in one Bicep file, it's going to be very complex. It's going to be the same if you compare it to ARM templates. So my tip is use modules, try to keep everything as general as possible and use parameters to specify what you want to deploy. And then we come to a story that you can have, for example, one person that's the operation or automation person that writes those Bicep files or writes those ARM templates. And then you can have the administrators that need, for example, they need to change or they need to add a subnet to a specific VNet. They don't going to change the module which is responsible for deploying the VNet. No, they are just changing the parameters, so the input that the Bicep file is taking, and will redeploy it through the Azure environment. And that's the power of having infrastructure as code. So you make parameters, and those parameters can be changed by anyone, even persons that don't know or don't understand how an ARM template or linked templates or whatever you use are working. You make it simple by using parameters, use that as input, and just limit the persons in your Azure environment. And that's where enterprise scale comes in. Like Wim said, the landing zones, you can create landing zones for specific applications, but also keep in mind that you can have different environments. So you have your production environment that consists of different subscriptions, of course. Make sure that nobody can access those subscriptions in the Azure portal. Make sure that only your infrastructure as code deployment account can change things in your Azure environment. Then you have one consistent environment. You can let people change and test things in the Azure environment, of course, but let them do that in some kind of dev subscription where the price will also drop if you use dev test subscriptions or you use the Visual Studio subscriptions, for example. Just go and click everything together into your Azure portal and then just export the ARM template and go from there. use it. Also look at enterprise scale. It has a lot of ARM templates within. You can steal with your eyes there. That's a very that's the thing what I did, of course.
No, absolutely. I think it's quite some quite good tips there. I think what we're saying there is this journey of learning infrastructure as code is a thing, and people have to get up to speed with that, or should get up to speed with that, for kind of best practices, not including any errors, human errors from clicking the wrong thing or typing the wrong thing in a portal. But equally, it's important to lock down the portal view, because if you're controlling it with infrastructure as code, you don't necessarily want those things to get out of sync. And we're probably getting into a bit of detail with state files and things like that with Terraform, but Bicep doesn't have state. Terraform does. Bicep gets it from the Azure. There are so many things to learn, I guess, is the point here. And maybe this takes us on to the next kind of train of thought. There is training and learning. I mean, how are you guys finding things at the moment in terms of the sheer amount of capability, shall we say, across the Azure platform? How do you stay on top of those capabilities, and what is it for you that you focuses you on specific areas to learn? Wim, I don't know if you want to take that one again. First off.
So for me, like we said in the beginning, it was a normal evolution. So in the beginning, I mostly did IaaS. So just like we said, I started off. I bought a book because in the beginning there was not a lot available on Microsoft Docs, and it was just starting, and then just going to customers and just doing everything to the portal, learn. So my starting point is always go to the Microsoft Docs, search some modules on Microsoft Learn, and just start with clicking in the portal, learning specific resources and features, and build up your environment. It's not that easy. If you don't have a free subscription or a Visual Studio subscription, some things also cost a lot of money. But I think in the Microsoft Learn modules, you can also try it in there. So my starting point is always learn by doing and learn by testing it out. I spend a lot of hours after work learning new things and just clicking and experimenting with things, and then watch people's video, join user groups. There's a lot of stuff that really can help you, but in my opinion, the best way to learning is by doing it. And in the beginning, failing, and just thinking how things work, and start look and feel, and learn it from there. That's my way to do it.
Yeah, I think, personally, I think I get distracted by all the shiny new tech. I mean, how do you refrain yourselves from becoming unfocused? Because it happens to me a lot, personally. It's just, you're doing a day job, you're looking towards building something, then it's like, oh, something shiny. Let me go and look at that. And then there's something else shiny. And so before you know it, you find, I'd probably speaking for myself because I could be so unfocused, it's silly. But you end up, have you got any kind of tips around that maybe? How do you kind of navigate your way through this world of tech advances? So Karel, have you got any?
First of all, if you're doing a job like Wim or yourself, John, if you're a cloud solution architect or even an administrator, leverage the opportunity. So if your company has, for example, a nice project that somebody else is working on, try to get into that project and try to help there, because I've learned so much to just doing projects and like Wim said, doing the things, and eventually things will break and you need to troubleshoot. And it's by troubleshooting, by sometimes reverse engineer the thing that you've just deployed. How does that work? It's at that moment that you find out, all right, that's the way things work here, and I need to do it in that way. I need to do it the other way around. But also, many people have different styles of learning. I like doing, like Wim said, doing things in the portal, making my own scripts, Azure CLI, command line wise, just deploying things and see what happens. Maybe break some things to see how can I fix it. The one thing I like the most is just chatting with somebody else like Wim and just explaining, I have a problem. Can you just look at it? I will explain what I've done, and through the explanation, most of the time, I know what I did wrong. That's the problem there. So explaining something to somebody else also helps to understand the resource, the feature that you want to implement. So that's the thing that works the best for me. But if you want to have a new topic, learn a new topic, just focus on that topic only. Take 3 months, take 6 months. For example, if you are new to Kubernetes and you want to learn how Kubernetes works, or for example, how Azure Kubernetes works, just focus on that for at least 3 months, playing around, reading books, just look at videos. The community, the Microsoft, the cloud community has so much of good information, a lot of good speakers are out there, and a lot of information you can find just on YouTube or just by reading blogs, and learn by example, learn by doing. That's the way I learn, at least.
I mean, that's a great segue into kind of this this community thing that we are kind of all part of. I mean, you guys both are involved with some fantastic user groups over in Belgium. I mean, do you want to? Personally, I'm involved in a user group, and I attend as many as I can. And I guess it's to get those ideas. You know, sometimes you might sit there and go, I want to do something in the cloud, but I'm not really sure where to start. I mean, literally seek out some user groups. I mean, what are you guys up to at the moment with your user group sessions, and how are you finding those in community? I mean, a bit of a broad question, I guess, but, you know, what is it in community that drives you guys to kind of run these things?
For me, it's more about helping people and sharing the stuff you learned on the way, and giving other people a podium to share their stuff and their experience. So when we started off with MC2MC, I was into Azure. Some other guys were into Microsoft 365. So we were in different roles in a way, but yeah, they're coming together these days. So, and then we started talking, and maybe we need to do something around Azure and combine it with Microsoft 365, because of a lot of people. Even in the smaller companies, they don't have the different teams doing those specific tasks, or one team is focusing on Microsoft 365, the other one is focusing on domain controllers, the other one is focusing on storage. In the smaller companies, that doesn't exist. It's mostly 5 people or even less that need to do everything. And then that's the way we thought of, let us make a community, a user group, combining some things. So we have 2 main pillars. One is focusing on Azure, but it goes from IaaS to Kubernetes to functions to AKS and so on and so on. So it's really a mix, but we also try to focus from time to time on Windows Server with Arc these days. So bringing in that hybrid world. And then the other pillar is the Microsoft 365. We're focusing on MEM, AVD, Sentinel, Intune, and all those things. And there's just a new team member, Frank, and he's focusing on Power Platform. So once again, something completely different. So we try to go broad, focusing on the Microsoft stack, Microsoft Hybrid Cloud, and all those things, and then giving people a way to learn things and then have discussions and learn from each other. But it asks a lot of work, because we're still organizing monthly online events. I think a lot of people are already, their head is exploding of all those events and all those videos available already. So normally we will try to focus on organizing something in person again in June. So, but yeah. The thing is, with those online things, it's easier to get those international speakers, because we're just one click Teams button away from chatting and giving a session. And when you need to do it online, and especially as a user group, you don't have the money to fly in everybody, or you need a sponsor. You know the story, I think, John.
It's been fantastic, hasn't it? I think that's one of the benefits, I guess, that has come out for the tech community, is the accessibility to all these fantastic people globally that can come and join user group. But I guess equally, like you say about helping others, in the world of public speaking and getting into doing some of that stuff, if you are interested in community, I mean, these user groups offer that kind of platform as well. I mean, Karel, what's your experience in that, and what does community mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good point. We, with our own user group, so the Tech9 user group, we try to search for people that are very passionate about just one topic. and it goes very broad, even beyond the Microsoft products that we all know. But what we try to seek is just by speaking to other people and just speaking about what they do in their day job and seeing, oh, you can do that also. Oh, you do it in that way. Can you just come and explain that in one of our sessions? And most of the people are first-time speakers, and they don't like to do the public speaking, but we try to convince them, and it's a way to get into the community, you know, to meet other people and to get used to presenting online. Even if you've never presented in person, online presenting is a very good way of starting your journey in presenting and even training to people online or in person. That's the first step that we see. Just going into one of the many communities that we have and present there just a topic where you're passionate about, what you do all day. That's a good way to start. And I think if you ask me the question, where do you see it will go? There is a lot of information inside of the communities. And why that is, because that's all hands-on information and all hands-on experience. And that's very, very, very good information to have.
Oh no, absolutely, and like you say, just being part of the community, I guess you get just that human connection, that having a chat, doing these videos, having a chat with people, people from different parts of the world, kind of wasn't really a thing before COVID to this extent. You know, it's been. So I mean, there have definitely been some massive positives, and like we say, just the fact that we haven't spoken properly, you know, over the last few years until now. I mean, it's just great to kind of have this catch up with you guys. You know, it's been a fantastic chat so far. I mean, look, there's always one question that I like to ask guests as they come onto this show, but we talked about infrastructure. How do businesses kind of start getting their footprint into a cloud platform and do that with some kind of thought process rather than going all gung-ho with things like enterprise scale and management groups and policies and things like that. But we talked about learning, and we're all on this thing of almost daily, if not weekly, learning exercises that we kind of have to keep our brains engaged at some level. Where do you think we're going, guys? I mean, in terms of what's next? It's a big, broad, open-ended question, but what are your next big bets in technology for the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you think we're going? Wim, I don't know if you want to start off again.
I must say that's really a good question.
Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Why? I think at the moment there's still quite a gap. You have people focusing fully on cloud and doing everything there, all the hocus pocus and the new shiny things. But there's also still a place called on-premises. And I think fitting up the gap between cloud and the on-premises environment and bringing it all together in a hybrid world, like everybody wants that buzzword everybody wants to use, multi-cloud, hybrid world. And I think, the decisions we're doing, Karel, you can agree probably. We're now trying to focus on Azure Arc and Azure Stack ACI. So at the moment, for the next year, I don't say 10 years, I'm focusing on those things. So bringing all those capabilities you're used of when you deploy your resources into Azure, but bringing all those features and management possibilities to your on-premise environment. So in a way that it doesn't matter anymore where things are running, you can manage them from a single pane of glass in one single way. So you need to have a specific skill set, but where things are running, we don't care anymore. So I'm trying to focus on those things. So bring my Azure skill set even further. I think I really need to focus on Kubernetes too.
Well, I was going to say then, you know, with the whole hybrid thing going on at the moment, the fact that cloud native Kubernetes running applications and services, regardless of the underlying infrastructure, whether it's it seems to be, a thing that hybrid. I completely agree. You know, there's always. I think it's safe to say. I think if you swallow the blue pill, the Microsoft blue pill, everything is latest, greatest, state of the art, cutting edge, and you think, hang on a second, there's still 90% of businesses are far from that stage. And I guess that's our roles. I'm presuming, this is the same world as me, where you're helping customers navigate that
building
landscape.
bridges in a way.
Yeah,
Building
absolutely. I mean,
bridges.
Karel, what's your take on the tech industry at the moment? Where do you think we're headed?
Yeah, and I just want to elaborate on that, and I think we have to trademark that quote. But hybrid is forever. I think
Yeah.
it will stay, and that's something that you see. Also, Microsoft is having those certificates now. So the AZ 800, 801. So it's all focused on the hybrid administrator, and that's really nice to see that they realize, okay, we have to get those people also on board in any or other way. And let me tell you a story. Like in very long time ago, there was no electricity. And nowadays, you just plug in your cable and you have electricity. It's the same thing with internet. You can't go anywhere without having internet these days. Maybe some kind of island, but internet is everywhere. And those are the waves that we see. So electricity is now a common. Internet is now a common thing. And the thing that we see also with, like you say, the cloud native applications, I think that in the next 5 or 10 years, that will be also a common thing, right? You don't have something like Kubernetes anymore. It's just going to be there. If it's on your on-premises data center or in the cloud, it doesn't matter. It's just going to be there. You just are going to have something to deploy your application to. And I think that's the way we are going from today till 5-10 years. Don't know how long, but it will be the same as like saying, okay, I need electricity, just plug in the cable, just like that, just deploying your application to something like a Kubernetes cluster. And apart from that, if you look at how what do I need to learn, or where should my focus be on, just keep your learning attention not too long. I mean, if you are focusing to do the AZ 800 exam, or try to get your CKA exam, so the Certified Kubernetes Administrator, for example, do it. Just focus on that. Don't take 1 or 2 years to get your certificate or learn one thing. Just focus 3-6 months, do it, get that certificate, maybe change job, maybe it's a career opportunity, and then go from there on. It changes so fast. Don't waste your time by looking at one certification for 2 years, because that's too long. It's already outdated, even if you want to take it. So that's my advice.
And it's great advice. It is great advice. And it's one of those things, I think, as an industry and probably as a collective group, I don't know about you guys, but it's almost like we are going through this journey ourselves, and there aren't nicely polished solutions there ready to go. I think this is where we're at the moment. And what the future holds is going to be very interesting, I think it's fair to say. But like you say, things like Kubernetes and certainly a lot of the services that Microsoft's coming up with now with metaverse and augmented and mixed reality, there are some cool areas coming that I'm sure we'll all be deploying infrastructure at. Like you say, hybrid is forever. Is it all going to be in public cloud? Probably not. But guys, look, this has been such a fun chat. Thanks again for coming on and giving up your time and saying hello to me. I mean, are there any last parting words of wisdom you'd like to impart us with?
Nothing special anymore.
Thanks for having
My magic stick is empty at the moment.
No, guys, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for coming on and being such awesome guests.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks
You're
for having
welcome.
us.
You're welcome, John.
Bye.
Catch you soon. Thanks both.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Ta-da, bye.